folks, how's it going? So I had a question in from one of our YouTube members, Peter in Australia, and it was a very good question about when solo training, are there drills I can do to improve my reflexes? It's the sort of question we answer in more detail on our YouTube channel. Just click join below to get more details on that. But I thought it was also a good question to put out as part of the monthly vlog here. So I'm going to cover a few ideas on solo training to improve our reflexes. Now we should get into the terminology a little bit first, because strictly speaking, a reflex is an involuntary reaction to a stimulus. For example, if we touch something hot, that's a reflex action. When the doctor hits your knee with that funny little toffee hammer thing, that's a reflex reaction. Whether they can be trained or improved, I don't know. Some people say you can use supplements or certain foodstuffs to improve those, but they're generally people who are selling foodstuffs and supplements. So what people are generally talking about when we get into this area are, can I improve my reactions? Usually referring to hand-eye coordination, because we want to see something happening and we want to be able to react to it as quickly and appropriately as possible. From there we can work to the idea of response, which is where we want to take things with Systema training, particularly when working in a confrontation. We don't want to be waiting for the person to initiate some movement and we react to it, though that's a starting point. We want to be able to respond to it. It's as more of an element of control in what you're doing with a response. But that is a little bit of another area. First, we have to see things happening, we have to have decent reactions. And of course, all of this is just one aspect of the much wider and broader area of awareness training. And I'd advise, if you want to learn more about that, look at some of my other videos, or we've got the book Systema Awareness Training, which has a whole load of drills and information on developing awareness across all of your senses. So a very simple way when training solo to start developing your reactions, and in particular your hand-eye coordination, is just to drop and catch. You can start off very easily. See here, I'm barely letting the stick drop at all before I catch it. I can increase that time. I can switch hands. I can start throwing the stick around a little bit, working different positions, different angles. Now of course you can do this with any training item, training weapons, any object, anything that's safe. Don't pick up a super sharp knife and start doing this, or drop it in your foot. Any object that's safe, you can work in this drop and catch idea. And you don't have to be mobile, right? You can start in one place, you can be walking around, you can be changing level as you go, you can go down on the floor, you can throw it over your shoulder and catch it. You can come up with lots of ideas, I'm sure. So that's the first level of hand-eye coordination work. So the second level is to start building in a little less predictability, because obviously here I'm in control of the ball when I drop it, so I'm already primed to catch it. So what we're going to do now is take a tennis ball and a wall and start working by bouncing the tennis ball off the wall. Again, you're in control of when the ball goes, but you're not so much in control of where or when it comes back. There's a little less predictability in the movement now, which is only going to help increase and improve our hand-eye coordination. So the first drill is bouncing the ball off the wall, throwing and catching with the same hand. You can start close, and of course you can vary the distance as you need to. From there you can try throwing with one hand, catching with the other. So of course there's lots of variations you can work into this. You can close your eyes, throw the ball. When you hear the ball hit the wall, you open the eyes and catch. You can throw the ball, do a complete turn and catch. You can switch between hands. You can try even adding in another ball, so maybe see if you can keep 3 balls going, that kind of stuff. You can work to bounce on the floor first, then the wall, and then up. Anything just to start increasing the unpredictability of the movement of the ball. Of course, that is going to help, that is going to feed over into improving our hand-eye coordination. So another good method is, rather than bouncing and catching, is to use something that swings. Now we've got to work against the movement, we've got to evade the object. Again, of course, if I just set it on that course, it's a little bit predictable, but that's okay to start. We can, of course, start mixing things up, and we'll put in more than one object as well. But to start, get your object something safe again, something that's not going to cause injury or upset if it hits you in the face. Just set that swing in, and just look at, just moving the head out of the way. Of course, it's going to slow down, so every now and again you just push it. So it gives us something. You'll notice one of the issues you have here with anything swinging is there's a kind of rhythm to it, right? And it's something I always try and avoid in training, is building up a rhythm, particularly when we're responding to something. It's an interesting thing to study in terms of breaking another person's rhythm sometimes, but what you want to avoid, particularly with awareness drills, is it becomes too mechanical. So look, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. You know, it's that's not really building up the awareness so much as just building up rhythm, which is great if you're a drummer. So I can, of course, rather than just putting this in a line, I can make this circle more, and also I can be moving as well. Again, it's a little difficult to show with the camera here because I don't want that bottle hitting the camera, but this now starts becoming less predictable. One of the important things when you do this work, again, it's difficult to talk about awareness without getting into lots of other areas, but try and make sure that your movement is fairly continuous. Try to avoid this sort of thing where you avoid and stop. Try to keep your movement continuous as much as you can throughout the whole drill. That's much more useful, much more beneficial when it comes to applying your work. So that's using a water bottle. You can use a small bottle or a larger bottle. Sometimes we use focus pads as well. And anything you can hang up that's going to give at least some sense that you need to avoid it. But quite another nice one is to use a ball. Now you can put that in a bag. So now the nice thing I have with this is not only do I have an object to avoid, but one that I can hit as well. Obviously the heavier the ball, then the better it is for punching. This one's quite light, and again, because I've got the camera right here, I don't want to be hitting it into the camera. So now you can start combining your movement with punches as well. Again, depending on what space you've got, you can just be moving the head, you can be stepping around, and you can be putting in your strikes. So now we start developing not only the hand-eye coordination in terms of avoiding, but also in targeting as well. Because of course it's great if you can get out of the way of something, or a fist or kick or whatever it is. It's even better if you can do something back at the same time. I'm going to stop before I cause any damage. So of course the progression from there is have more than one thing hanging, depending on what sort of space you got, what sort of setup you got. What we normally do here for this type of drill, we might have 8 objects or so hanging from the beams here, being pushed around, and the guys have to move through them and maybe have to do other things as well while they're moving, perhaps attack each other, or you know, anything to get that awareness going, not just of what is in front of you, because it's easy to track one thing, but also to start working your peripheral vision as well. Again, another big subject I'm not going to go into now, but check out our awareness book or some of the other videos. So if you're working solo and you've got a couple of things like this, you can have them both swinging in the same direction, you can have one stationary and one swinging, you can have them going in different directions or even in circles, and your job is to avoid one and hit the other, or just to avoid everything. You can set yourself different goals in the drill, and of course the more things you have up, the more you're practicing your hand-eye coordination from seeing things coming in, your coordination for striking, and of course there's nothing to stop you using elbows or anything else, and also that idea of wider awareness and peripheral vision. So I hope that gives you a few ideas for starting to work your hand-eye coordination. Of course if you've got a speed ball or that type of thing, that's another good tool as well. And what we're really trying to build into this drill as much as we can is that unpredictability. So for me, this is the best one. Throwing and catching is fine, but you find you very quickly get okay with that, even if you start increasing the complexity. It's a bit like juggling, right? If you did that every day, then I don't know, after a couple of months or something, you can at least juggle a few objects. With the swinging stuff, especially as you get more things moving, there's less predictability, and it starts to encourage this movement and all-round awareness. Now, speaking of that, everything we've done today, we've spoken about hand-eye coordination, so it's been very visually orientated. That's fine, but it's also good to try these drills relying less on the vision. So maybe you can close the eyes a bit, you can try in low light conditions, and of course at the far end you can blindfold yourself and start working as well. Now, this taps into our other senses. We know we have 5 main senses, but scientists have identified somewhere around 6 or 7 or maybe even more other senses as well, and there's nothing mystical or magical about this. What it is, it's just refining our faculties. So we talk a lot about natural movement in Systema, and for me that is what that is about. Simply enhancing and reawakening in some cases these natural faculties that we have, that we used to use and people still do use, where they have to hunt for their food or where they have to navigate difficult terrain and difficult situations. People in those environments are much more in touch with themselves than many of us who spend a lot of time on our phones, on the computer and everything else. We tend to become closed in. So that sort of aspect of awareness training is about expanding our senses out. So nothing magical or anything else about it, it's just natural human faculties. So when you do this work as well, yes, work your hand-eye coordination. Once you're okay at that, then try limiting your vision in those ways I described. So I hope that answers the question, Peter, at least in part, and gives you some ideas. Of course, if you can, you take that work into your classwork or working with other people, because then we're also starting to build in this awareness of body language and how people move and everything else, and there's nothing less predictable than other people, right? But also think about how you train awareness, and something that always irks me a little bit is I see sometimes people doing a scenario and the bad guy comes in and there's a verbal exchange and the person does their technique and deals with the bad guy, then they come out of the confrontation and look around, then they switch on the awareness. It's okay, but if you do that kind of stuff, try this instead. As you're working with the person or against the person, switch on your awareness there. You know where this person is. You should have a tactile element. You're touching them, you know where they are, so you don't need to be looking at them. That's the time you should switch on your awareness in case there's other people around. Another saying you'll hear a lot, certainly in Systema and also in some other martial arts, I think Musashi said it, this idea about when you're in conflict, the mindset is the same as when you're buttering your toast in the morning. And I did have to laugh when I heard one very prominent US commentator, shall we call him, get that completely the wrong way round. And he said something like, imagine even when you're buttering your toast, you're being the warrior. No, it's exactly the other way around. When you're a warrior, it's just like you're buttering your toast. You get out of this tunnel vision, predator kind of mindset, you know. I think if you do that, you'll find not only does your awareness expand and improve, you'll open yourself up to a lot of signals that you miss when you're in that state, but I think you'll find you'll be a healthier and happier person for it as well. Okay, so as always, please like and subscribe. Pop any questions below, I'll do my best to answer. And if you want to see this type of work in more detail, click our join button to look at the YouTube membership channel. We're just starting some work there on how to work under pressure and under stressful conditions. So we're going quite in depth on some breathing work. That's it for now. Take care.